very much, Dr. Sriprapha, for this very enlightening talk, to give us more background about the current protest in Thailand. So I would like to move next to, our next speaker, Dr. Maung Zarni, who is originally from Myanmar, Burma, and now living in exile in the UK. Dr. Zarni is a fellow of the Genocide Documentation Center in Cambodia, and he's also the co-founder of FORSEA, Forces of Renewal Southeast Asia, and he is also the Burmese coordinator of the Free Rohingya Coalition. Dr. Zarni has 30 years of engagement in activism, scholarship, politics, and media, and he has taught or held research fellowships in the United States, in Europe, and also in Asia. For the impact that he has made through his scholarship and activism, he was given the Cultivation of Harmony Award by the Parliament of World's Religions in 2015. And he was also shortlisted for Sweden's Right Livelihood Award in 2018. Dr. Zarni completed his PhD in 1998 at the University of Wisconsin on the politics of knowledge and control in Burma under military rule. So I would like to invite Dr. Zarni, who has lived in Thailand, who is very familiar with protests and attempts on democracy in the Southeast Asia region, to give us his take on the current Thai protest.
Thank you, Nageeb, and also I'm very honored to be included in this in the company of a very distinguished panelist. And Ajahn Sriprapha just gave us a very detailed analysis of what is happening in her country. She's on the ground, and I definitely would defer her assessment. What I want to do in the next 10, 12 minutes is share my thoughts on the current protest movements in Bangkok, looking from outside. I lived through the red shirt protests, across the street from Maung Crown, one of the busiest shopping centers in Thailand, back in 2010, when I was doing work in Vajiralongkorn for almost a year. And there were scenes of shooting of protesters by the Thai security forces, and myself that one night found having to run, carrying 6 packs of beer from 7-Eleven, and security troops were surrounding National Stadium area, trying to get back into our own small apartment in that district. And so the first thing is, the class characteristics of the movement, of the current protests in Thailand, compared with the red shirt protests, 10 years ago. As you know, the former Prime Minister Thaksin was able to essentially loosen, not necessarily out of democratic ethos or intentions, but for pragmatic reasons, to mobilize the votes outside of non-Bangkok area. So he inadvertently unleashed the basically voting power, or citizens or subjects power, from non-Bangkok elite. So there's a contradiction there. A billionaire, the tech tycoon, trying to push through the elite control to keep himself in power, or his parties or in power through electoral politics, appealing to the rural votes. The the ASEAN and other provinces were firmly in his voting bloc. That was 10 years ago, and that was in fact how he came to power through the elections, despite the stronghold over Thai power and politics by the Bangkok-based elite. Thaksin, as you know, was from the north, from Chiang Mai. But this movement, as Dr. Sriprapha pointed out, is led by organic circles of young protesters. And yesterday, I was chatting with one of the older generation dissidents, who's also a colleague of Ajahn Sriprapha, Professor Charan Dita Pichai, who's based in France. He reminded me that the current movement is led by secondary students and university students, and also young lawyers and artists. And so what Thai protests are accomplishing, to me, as someone who is extremely sympathetic to the aspirations of Thai people to have a constitutional monarchy, as opposed to the monarchy that is evolving towards a more absolutist, regressive version. I think Thai protests are extremely important, way beyond its national boundaries and immediate goals of turning a, essentially a corrupt and authoritarian and feudal regime into a more accountable, more transparent, and more citizen-oriented government. I think it is, the protests come, in my mind, very close to Black Lives Matter. We have not, discussed it. Ajahn Sriprapha mentioned that the monarchy is no longer out of bound in terms of public discussions and criticism. And so, in other words, the monarchy has been, above the criticism, and that was due to a very shrewd and calculated, public relations campaign, that went on for, I don't know, more than half a century under the previous and late, government, monarch, King Bhumibol, and the successor king, the current king, himself has contributed to this, a transformation of Thai consciousness. That he, as you know, I think, like a lot of people, particularly the Thai dissidents, would not, touch the subject of the king, for fear of persecution, particularly the older generation. But when you speak with younger generation dissidents, artists, in their 20s or early 30s, who are educated in the Western mold, they and also who are either in exile or who are studying in London or Paris or Germany, they're extremely unhappy, or more like extremely angry that the monarch has essentially stole billions and billions of dollars. My understanding is that, you know, close to $50 billion were transferred to his own personal account from the institutional account called, I think, like Crown View or something like that. And that's just one thing. And also his own, lifestyle, if you were, showing up in, skimpy clothes, the behaving in manners that are considered, unbefitting of a symbol of a nation. And so we need to bear in mind that the character of the monarch himself is a contributing factor. And even before the father king, his own father, was in critical condition. They went into critical condition and later passed away. There have been a serious concern among a lot of Thai, dissidents, academics, and even the non-politically involved Thai citizens. There were discussions about the repercussions of the new king at the time sitting in his wing to take over the reins from his dying father. And so that's one thing. The other one is, I don't know how much material impact the current protest movement is going to have on the institutional arrangements of Thai politics. Like Burma or Myanmar, my own country of birth, the democratic system is rigged, structurally, to make sure that the power elite retains its grip, no matter what happens on the streets of Bangkok or Yangon or other places. As you know, the Burma has 25% constitutionally guaranteed seats in different parliaments in Burma, including the bicameral houses of the national parliament in Naypyidaw, and the Burmese can never, under that constitutional arrangement drawn up and adopted by the military, can fully have a democratic system, because the military stays above the popular will and the electoral politics, right? And so, in the case of Thailand, it seems to me that there is a very, very close alliance between the palace, the monarchy, and the military. Also the character of the military itself, the armed forces of Thailand, swear their allegiance to defend the monarchy, not the Thailand as a country of the citizens. In the case of Burma, the Burmese defend the military. The Burmese military defends its own interest, and in the case of the USA, where we are seeing extremely worrying signs of Donald Trump trying to do everything in his power to undermine the popular and electoral college votes. Finally, I think in the middle, I think Ajahn Sriprapha also mentioned about the ASEAN or Southeast Asian Spring. I prefer to use the term Southeast Asia instead of ASEAN, simply because we have a situation where a regional bloc of 10 political states, has since its founding acted as a regressive force, as opposed to a progressive institution that embraces transformation of regions' political institutions, parliaments or executive branches or judiciary, into a more democratic, transparent institutions. So the Thai protests are happening somewhat in isolation or somewhat in a national silo, if you will, as opposed to being connected with the democratic movements across Southeast Asia. I mean, we witnessed the progressive changes that took place in Putrajaya, in Kuala Lumpur. The Malaysian Democrats from all different faiths and ethnic backgrounds were able to bring about, essentially the downfall of the UMNO regime because of extreme corruption and nepotism and cronyism that have come to infest the ruling UMNO that had almost complete monopoly over Malaysian national politics and to a degree economy. So many of us cheered the victory of Malaysian Democrats and their democratic movement, and so we from outside Thailand would very much like to see the current the Thai protests led by youth, particularly the students and university students and secondary students, and of course, like there are also quote unquote grown-up dissidents and politicians that are also working hand in gloves with these students, despite the lack of a single iconic figure emerging out of these protests. And I think that is not necessarily a bad thing. There seems to be intergenerational solidarity. Ajahn Sriprapha's generation, 1976, and also the previous protest, the dissidents from the 1990s and 2000, they seem to be supporting the new generation leading the charge against a corrupt regime. And so just bear in mind, there are many Southeast Asians outside of Thailand who want to offer moral, intellectual, and material support to Thai dissidents, because we are going to have to band together as peoples across national boundaries and our own nationalities and identities and other material interest, if our region, Southeast Asia, is going to have a more transparent, accountable regimes. At the moment, ASEAN, remains a club of corrupt autocrats that pay lip service to civil society and human rights, and that have not had a change of heart or even enlightened self-interest as their primary goals in politics. And so onward with the Thai protesters, just the 30 seconds promotion. This coming Tuesday, the Professor Thongchai Winachakul from the University of Wisconsin, one of the most prominent leaders of 1976 uprisings out of Thammasat University, will be giving his in-depth historical overview of Thai democratic struggles. I will be hosting that conversation 9 o'clock in the morning at Wisconsin or Chicago time, and it will be quite late in Southeast Asia, but definitely worth listening to Ajahn Thongchai's views on the current movement. And thank you again.